Hello, and thanks for joining us online today. To get the most out of your experience, you can download the Grace Church app and tap on the Sunday Morning tab. You'll be able to take notes, access the Bible, and fill out a response card. If you'd like to check out other messages from other Sundays, you can find those there as well. It's also a great way to share Grace Church with others. Well, this online experience is made possible through the generosity of people just like you at Grace Church. And if you'd like to contribute to what God is doing here, you can also do that in the app at worcestergrace.org or simply by texting Grace Church Woo to 77977. Well, thanks again and enjoy the service.
Well, good morning, Grace Church. Welcome to church today. My name is Billy Starkey. I'm our Grace Students Director, and it's my privilege to be with you today to continue this series, Relationship Rehab. And today, we're talking about the topic of anger. And I wonder, have you ever been in a situation in your life where you have been face to face with an angry stranger? I'm talking about a time where there was someone you did not know, and they were angry with you, maybe justified or unjustified, and you didn't know what they might do next. Well, I found myself in a place just like this, and it actually happened in a public bathroom. Let me tell you about it. I was at the Cleveland Browns opening game against the Tennessee Titans, and see, right there, some of you are already angry. All I had to do was mention the Browns, and it's like, okay, you get it. It's just a breeding ground for anger. To be in the stadium, you're just going to be angry. Okay, so I was at the stadium. As the game went on, this was not going well. Everyone was kind of upset, and I decided I need to take a stop at the restroom, okay? And so as I'm walking down, I realized there is a massive line, just an incredibly long line at the bathroom entrance. And so I did something, I'm being honest here, I did something wrong. I know I shouldn't have done this, but as I walked by, I noticed someone walking out of the bathroom exit, and while the door was open, I kind of thought, well, here's my chance to cut the line and kind of sneak in. I'm just saying I did this. I'm not proud of it, but as the door opened up, myself and another guy, we both walked in the exit. We kind of slinked around the corner and waited for our opportunity to get to a stall. Well, as we're waiting there, I hear a voice from the other side of the bathroom yell out, "Oh, you think you're better than the rest of us?" And I think, well, surely he's not talking to me. And then he goes, "I'm talking to you." "Oh, okay. You think you're better than the rest of us." And then I make this fatal mistake. I made eye contact with him, and I didn't know what to do, so I just looked at him, and I nodded, and I looked away. And he said, I know you don't care, but the rest of us are waiting in line, and you think it's okay just to cut. And I'm beginning to get scared. This guy's face is red. He's incredibly upset. He's like, what in the world is wrong with you? He might have used some choice words in all of this. And as things begin to escalate, the other guy who walked in the bathroom with me got angry back. And so he meets this guy face to face, and he's like, "Are you talking to me?" And it became this macho bravado thing where they're like chest to chest. "Get your hands off me, get your hands off me." And as things begin to get more and more heated, the bathroom stall next to me opened up. And I just slowly backed up into it, closed the door, closed the lock, and I waited for everything to blow over. I mean, I was not ready to get in a fight over this thing. I don't know about you, but we all can get angry sometimes, right? Maybe it doesn't look quite like that, but none of us are immune to this emotion of anger. And so I wonder, what makes you angry? What really grinds your gears? What boils your blood? I've heard it said this way: what really gets your goat? I don't know where that comes from, but I heard someone say that this week. I wonder, what makes you angry? Maybe this is something like this. Maybe you get angry when you're driving in traffic. When you're stuck in traffic, maybe someone cuts you off, they don't let you in, you just get mad, you experience some road rage. Maybe for you, anger comes not from people outside of your car, but from the people inside of your car. I hope I'm not the only person that happens to struggle with some anger when I deal with backseat driving. Am I the only person here that deals with that? I mean, my wife, Courtney, and I, 90% of our arguments happen while we're in the car together. And it's because I'm terrible with directions, and she is a terrible backseat driver. So it is just like this awful mixture, and oftentimes we have a conversation that goes like this. She gives me instructions, and I say, hey, if you want to control the car, you could sit in a different seat, and you could drive instead. I mean, backseat driving, one of those things that makes us angry. Maybe for you, it's waiting in line. You just can't stand it. Maybe it's when your kids won't behave or listen, and you just got done scrolling through Instagram, and some other family seems like they have a perfect life and perfect kids, and your kids are just not listening right now, and the anger builds up. Maybe your spouse's habits just kind of frustrate you. They leave their clothes on the floor. Your husband won't put the toilet seat down when he's done. Maybe your wife squeezes toothpaste from the middle of the tube instead of the bottom, and you just don't understand that. If you've got a son, I'm sure you've seen anger when they've lost at Fortnite. I mean, there's no anger like when you lose in video games. Well, I found this week. An NPR survey says that 84% of Americans are angrier today than they were a generation ago. In fact, I think we live in really like an age of perpetual offense. If you scroll through Facebook, if you look at the news, everyone is offended all the time about something. I mean, does anyone here know someone who is always offended? Does anyone know a person like that? They're always offended. Don't point at them. It's not nice. That's just going to make them more offended. I mean, we can so easily get upset. The point is this. In this day and age, if you're looking for something to get angry about, you will always find what you're looking for. You'll always find it. You'll always find a reason to be mad. But anger is a difficult topic because we easily rationalize it, right? We say, well, if he hadn't done that, then I wouldn't have done this. And it's not really my fault I got mad. They kind of annoyed me, and I just had to react. Besides, it's just how God made me, right? I'm just a little hot-headed. I kind of lose my temper, but it's not really a big deal. Well, this morning together, I want us to move past the excuses and maybe get to the root, because few things can damage our relationships like anger. And while you might sit here and go, wow, this isn't really for me, I don't really get angry, my anger's no big deal, I wonder what would happen if someone were to ask your friends, your spouse, maybe your kids, man, do they deal with anger? I wonder what their answer might be. When anger takes control of our lives get out of control. Our mouths, our actions, our moods, everything kind of goes crazy, and there's too much at stake. Because when left unchecked, anger can destroy friendships, it can destroy marriages, it can destroy churches, it can even destroy workplaces. And in fact, if you look up some research in this, anger even destroys your own health. You don't have to be a follower of Jesus this morning to understand that anger can bring a lot of damage into your relationships. Here's what I know. No one's life is better because they're bitter. No one has a happier marriage because they are hateful. No one has a great relationship with their kids because they carry resentment. And I don't know about you, but I don't even like the person that I am when I get angry. And so today, whether you're sitting here and you're already thinking, man, I need this. I mean, you know it. You don't need me to tell you. If you're sitting here going, man, I just need this, that might be you. I mean, maybe you're here today and you're carrying something that you've been angry about for a long time, and it's kind of eating you up on the inside. Maybe today you're angry because someone else hurt you and their anger. wherever you're at with this topic of anger, I'm thankful today that God offers us some wisdom through his word to know how to control our anger so our anger doesn't get out of control. And so we're going to be looking at the words from Paul in the book of Ephesians chapter 4. You can go ahead and open up there if you haven't already. And if we want to get anger under control, the first thing we have to understand is this, that anger is really simply an emotion. Anger is just an emotion, and while we can't always choose how we feel, we can always choose how we respond. That's why Paul said this in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26. He said, "In your anger, do not sin." So it's not necessarily a sin to be angry. Paul's saying here, when you feel anger, do not sin. It's really a warning. He's saying, hey, be careful. Anger can easily lead to sin, but he's letting us know here that it's not necessarily something sinful to feel. Anger is a lot like fire. If you were to look throughout the Bible, you'd find 15 times in the Bible, anger and fire are used in the same verse. And so anger can be like a campfire. It can warm you. You can cook with it. It can be good, but anger can also be like a wildfire, and it can damage and it can destroy everything in its path. And you look at it this way. If anger leads you to righteous acts, if it leads you to do something good, well, then it's good like a campfire. But if anger leads you to damage and destroy, then it's bad. And so we could argue from this that such a thing as righteous anger could exist, righteous anger. And while this is not the type of anger that usually shows up in our relationships, we should just take a minute to talk about this. What is righteous anger? How can you be angry and not sin? Well, I think there's this idea of what I'd call like a crusader anger. It's when you and I get angry at the things that anger God. When you see injustice in the world, when you see wrongdoing, and your blood just boils and your heart rises, and you say, I've got to do something about this. That can be a righteous anger. You know, really, so many humanitarian efforts and life-changing ministries, like those that protect children, those that prevent human trafficking, were born out of a righteous anger at injustice and anger at the things that anger God. You can look at righteous anger this way. It's getting angry when others are not getting what they deserve. Righteous anger is getting angry when others aren't getting what they deserve. But in our relationships, this is not the type of anger that usually shows up, right? This isn't the anger that we usually deal with. Our anger looks more like this. It comes up when I'm not getting what I think I deserve. See, sinful anger is a selfish anger. It's an anger that comes up when our egos get bruised and we say, I'm not getting what I want. That's the type of anger that usually shows up in your relationships and my relationships. It's an anger that boils up when we aren't getting what we deserve. And so this anger usually comes in one of two forms. You could either be a person that shouts out when you're angry, or a person who shuts down when you're angry. I like to call it, you could be either a spewer or you could be a stewer. I wonder in the room which category you fall into. Some of us are more extroverted with our anger. When we get mad, we explode, we spew out. Let's just be honest here today. How many of you are more of a spewer when you get angry? You're more extroverted. Don't be ashamed. It's okay. It's okay. We're not going to call you out here. It's fine. We all deal with this. How many of you would say that you're more of a stewer? You kind of shove it down and you just hold on to it. Okay. This week as I was preparing, I thought, well, I should be honest about myself. So when I thought about my life, I think I'm more of a stewer. I can really shut down. I can kind of get moody. I'm not proud of it, but that's me. But when I asked Courtney what she thought I was, she said I'm more of a spewer. So basically, I've got a lot of work to do here. I can express my anger in all kinds of ways. But whether you're a person that shoves it down or whether you're a person that shuts other people down, anger can always hurt other people, and it really has no place in the life of a Christian. This kind of sinful anger is something we've got to show it the door quickly. And that's why Paul goes on, he says this. He says, in your anger, do not sin. And then he says, do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. You might have heard this verse before. When I heard it before, I thought it applied to marriages. And it actually does. It's great wisdom. Don't miss this if you're a married couple today. Don't go to bed mad. There's so much wisdom in dealing with your anger before you go to bed, not letting the sun set on your anger. But this actually applies to way more than just marriage. It applies to all of life. We should learn how to deal with our anger quickly. And I think that's actually what Paul is telling us to do here. Paul's encouraging us to do this with anger. We need to learn to deal with it. Well, why don't you just look at someone next to you and just let them know, deal with it. I'll be honest, I saw like mouths move, but I didn't even hear anything. All right, so just help me out here a little bit, all right? Look at someone next to you and let them know, deal with it. Yes, I love it. Paul's telling us we've got to learn to deal with anger, but not just that. We don't just need to deal with it, we actually need to deal with it quickly. He's saying deal with it quickly. That's the principle at play here. He's saying don't let the sun go down on your anger. He's saying deal with it quickly. Why? Because anger, when left unattended, quickly spoils and turns into bitterness. It's like leaving a gallon of milk on the counter overnight. Something bad is going to happen on the inside. Have you ever went to get some cereal in the morning and you get the gallon of milk out and you kind of sniff it and you're like, something doesn't smell quite right. Man, when you let milk sour, it's just not good. Well, anger is the same way. Paul's telling us we must do whatever we can to deal with anger before it turns into bitterness. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. Because if you do, it'll just get worse. He goes on to say this. He says, don't let the sun go down in your anger, and do not give the devil a foothold. This is what happens when we don't deal with anger quickly. This word foothold here, it can be translated in the Greek, it's the word topos. And this word literally means an opportunity, a location, a place, or a room. In other words, Paul's saying this: don't allow Satan, through the open door of anger, to have a guest room in your house. That's what happens when you go to bed mad. You've let the enemy into your home. And while he's there, he's going to do what he does best. John 10:10, Jesus says that he came so that we may have life and life to the full, but we have an enemy who has come to steal, kill, and destroy. And while he's in your house, that's exactly what he wants to do to your relationships. Why would you invite the devil to stay over at your house? Here's the principle. Paul said, deal with anger quickly. Here's what happens if we don't. If we don't deal with it, Satan will divide with it. If we don't deal with it, Satan will divide with it. He desires to destroy our relationships, and he's going to do it through the method of division. He has a divide and conquer mentality. He wants to drive a wedge between you and the ones that you love the most. But here's the thing, you're smart, right? So if Satan showed up at your front door and said, hey, I'm here to destroy your marriage, I'm going to bring some pain into your friendships, I'm going to ruin your relationship with your kids, you wouldn't stand for that, right? You'd go, no way. I'm not going to let you do this to my life. But that's not what Satan does. Instead, he'll sneak through the back door that we leave open when we don't deal with our anger quickly. It's like leaving the door cracked open and just inviting him into our lives. And where he can't get a victory by a frontal assault, he's going to win it through deception. He's going to assassinate your relationships, and he's going to do it through anger and bitterness. You know, we know from the book of James that it's really our own sinful desires that tempt us to be angry, to sin. But Satan can and will exploit your very worst tendencies to bring about greater anger and to bring about greater evil in your life. And how does he do it? He does it one little offense at a time. One little offense at a time. The little things in your relationships that bug you about other people. The little things that make you mad. Man, someone says something to you, they maybe didn't mean anything by it, but you take offense to it and you just hold on to it. Man, that's one little offense. Maybe someone forgets to say something. They forgot to say thank you. I mean, you worked hard, and they didn't even thank you for it, and that offense just builds up. Maybe a person rolls their eyes at you, and you think, man, what's wrong with them? Or they speak with the wrong tone, and all of a sudden, you're holding on to that. Maybe you have a friend that you texted, and they didn't text you back quick enough. I mean, you've got the iPhone, you saw the bubbles at the bottom. You knew they were texting, but then they stopped, and you're like, what's wrong with them? Why won't they talk to me? When you have unacknowledged effort, when you're maybe in your home, you go, you know what? I'm the only one who ever does the dishes. And it's fine. I'll wake up with the kid again. I know you have to work tomorrow. And no, don't worry about it. I'll do the laundry this time. You hold on to these things. You nurse them. You rehearse them. And what's Satan do? He just feeds it. He just feeds that anger. I think about it like this. It's like if you and I were to pick up a magnifying glass, and we just take every small little offense someone commits against us, and we just magnify it. Man, it becomes huge in our hearts. That's what Satan does. He's feeding your anger. He's feeding your worst tendencies. And all of a sudden, the friend you used to talk to every day, you haven't spoken to in months. And maybe you're a parent of an older child, and there's some hurt in the past that was never dealt with, and there's a fracture in the relationship. Seems like it could never be resolved. If you're a married couple, you know what this is like. You go to bed mad, like two brothers on a hotel bed. You know what this is like. When two brothers have to share like a twin bed, what do? You sleep back to back. This is my side. That's enemy territory. I'm not even going to let a foot over to your side because I'm just mad at you. And all of a sudden, we are separated from the people we used to be closest with. And Satan has won a victory. If he can't destroy your relationships through a full frontal assault, he will do it by sneaking in the back door. And in fact, this idea of harbored anger that we don't deal with, is one of the few things in the Bible that we know explicitly invites him in to our lives. We are leaving the door wide open. Come on in, damage my relationships, destroy my life. I mean, we just invite him in. This is why anger must be dealt with and dealt with quickly. We can't let it sit. We can't wait on it. We can't deal with it tomorrow. We've got to deal with it now. Because when we don't, Satan will divide with it. If we don't deal with it, Satan will divide with it. But what if we took Paul's advice? What if we dealt with it quickly? Here's what it looks like. When we do deal with it, we learn to drop it. When we do deal with anger quickly, we learn to drop it. I love this passage from Proverbs. It says this: starting a quarrel is like breaching a dam. So what's that word? Say it with me. So drop the matter before the dispute breaks out. We've got to learn to drop it. Paul says it this way in our passage. He says, get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, brawling, slander, along with every form of malice. He's saying get rid of it, put it away, have nothing to do with all bitterness, all rage, all anger, brawling, slander, malice. He's not saying get rid of some of it. He's not saying deal with it later. He's not saying get rid of most of it. He's saying get rid of all of it. In other words, we've got to learn to drop it. We've got to learn to drop it. In our lives, now I'm not talking about maybe the big things, man, the deep hurts. I mean, there's a way to drop those, but what I'm really talking about here, this is relationship rehab. These are the little offenses that other people commit against us and we commit against other people. When we let them accumulate, when we don't deal with them, Satan will divide with them. But when we choose to deal with them, we can just say, you know what? I'm going to drop it. I'm going to drop it. With God's help, we can do this. I'm not saying suppress it. I'm not saying forget about it. Remember, we're dealing with it. Maybe you need to have a conversation. Maybe you need to go to someone and say, hey, when you said that, that hurt me. Man, these are healthy conversations to have. Maybe you need to go to someone and say, hey, when you did that the other day, that really offended me. And you just need to let them know in the right spirit and the right attitude. But after you've had the conversation, we've got to learn to drop it, because the enemy wants to drive it down deep and he wants to divide with it, but we've got to drop it. It's like doing the dishes. I mean, in my home, Courtney cooks the meals and I do the dishes most of the time. I'm not sure where she's at. She might disagree with this sentiment, but that's my job I'm supposed to do. And you know that if you do the dishes right after the meal's over, I mean, all the food, the gunk, the dirt, I mean, it just comes right off the plate, right? But if you choose to leave the plate in the sink overnight and another night and another night, the food and the gunk and the junk, I mean, it just hardens. And it's going to be so much harder to deal with and remove if you don't do it quickly. So we've got to choose to drop it. If you want to do this in your life and your relationships, here's the fun part. If you're sitting here going, all right, this is me, I need to learn how to drop my anger, God's going to give you opportunities to practice today. I mean, he's going to give you chances today to put this into practice. Speaking of dishes, you're going to go home and your spouse forgot to do them. And then you've got the choice, right? Am I going to get mad about it, or am I going to drop it? I mean, I know they should have done it, but I'm going to choose. I know they had something come up. I know they didn't mean to offend me. I mean, we got to get that sometimes. Sometimes we got to go, I know what they did was wrong, but they didn't mean to offend me. I got to realize that. They didn't mean to offend me, so I'm just going to drop it. You're going to drive to Starbucks. You're going to get the cup. Maybe you're offended already because the color of the cup. I don't understand that, but that comes up sometimes. Man, the cup isn't red. I'm already mad. But you get your drink, and it's in the wrong order. And you've got a choice. Am I going to get mad about it, or am I going to drop it? I mean, I'm not saying you can't go back and say, hey, I ordered this, but I actually got this. I mean, you can do that, but it's your choice to get mad about it or to drop your anger. It's the holiday season. You're going to find a reason to get mad if you want to, but you can choose instead to drop it. It's like this. When anger begins to rise up in your spirit, you can say, no. I'm on to you. Not today, Satan. I'm not going to let you into my home. I'm not going to invite you into my house. You're not going to trick me. You're not going to hurt my relationships. I'm not going to allow it. Because when you deal with anger, when you deal with it quickly, when you drop it, you're removing the opportunity from Satan. You're taking it away from him. No. You don't get opportunity to come into this relationship. You're not welcome here anymore. In Jesus' name, I'm not going to let you do the damage that you want to do. Maybe in your life, you just need to pray about that. When anger begins to rise, you need to just pray, God, help me to drop it. I don't know if I can do it on my own, but God, just help me. You can confess your anger to God. You can give it to him, and he wants to help you to control it so it doesn't control you. But I want to take this just one step further, because I think there's really two different circumstances we could be in life where we need to drop anger. And one or both of these will apply to you. We're all going to go through them at a time. Sometimes we can just drop anger. Sometimes we can just say, you know what? I'm not going to get mad. I'm choosing to not get mad. I'm choosing to not hold this against them. But other times, we need to do this. We need to drop it, and we need to apologize. It's not enough for us just to maybe confess it to God and say, God, I'm sorry, I got mad. Forgive me. No. We need to drop our anger, and we need to apologize to the people we've hurt. Whether you're an extroverted, angry person who shouts out and hurts people, or whether you're the introverted, angry person that just holds it inside and withholds love, I mean, we hurt people with our anger. We cause damage in their life. And sometimes we need to just go to someone else and we need to say something real simple. It's just two words. This is profound. You've never heard this before. I came up with this week. Here's two words you can say to someone. You can say, I'm sorry. And because it's hard to say, right, we're prideful, right? We don't like doing this. Because it's hard to say, can we practice? Would you humor me? Can we practice together? Can you just, on the count of three, can you say this with me? All right, 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry. Man, didn't that feel good? I don't know who you were talking to there, but didn't that feel good? I mean, sometimes we just got to say it. And if you want to really go crazy, I mean, this is wild. You can take it a step further. Add 3 words. I'm sorry, I was wrong. We got to practice this. I mean, because this is going to be hard to do. We got to practice it, okay? So on the count of 3, we're going to say this together. 1, 2, 3. I was wrong. I mean, that's just a weight, right? Man, I'm confessing, I'm apologizing, but this is like master level stuff here. Okay, 4 words to add. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Will you forgive me? I mean, that's hard. Can we practice it? 1, 2, 3. Will you forgive me? Man, there's some power in getting good at apologizing, owning our mistakes. And I just have to be honest with you, because I can't stand up here and preach a message about anger and not let you know that this week, Wednesday night, I was coming home from church. I was here all day. It was like 9 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. It's been a long day. I'm tired. I'm ready to go home. Courtney was ordering Chipotle, and I was hangry. I mean, we've been there, right? I was hangry. I wasn't just hungry. I was so hungry, I was angry about it. And as I got to Chipotle, I expected the order to be ready, but she hadn't ordered it yet because she knows I'm usually late. And so she was waiting on me. So when I got to Chipotle and the order wasn't ready, I got angry. I mean, I just had to confess this. In the middle of writing a sermon about anger, I got angry at my wife. And on the phone with her, I mean, I just had this, I must have sounded ridiculous. I had this mood, I had this tone, it was terrible. And I hung up, and it's like, man, I just showed her, that's terrible, she did this to me. I mean, it just overcame me. And I had this moment where I was like, man, you're a hypocrite, it's so bad. And so this is what I did. I mean, I'm not better than you. I mean, this is just something we all have to do. I called her back, it's Courtney, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I mean, I don't know why I said that. It doesn't matter if I was tired. You did not deserve that. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? I mean, this is a regular part of living with another fallen, sinful person. We've got to learn to apologize. And I'm just saying, everybody's saying, I'm not all that holy or spiritual. I just had to do this week, but maybe in your life, you've got to go home. Maybe before you even get to the car, maybe when you get to your house, maybe before the day's over, you got to call someone, talk to someone, and say, hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I was wrong. Will you forgive me? And I love those last 4 words because it indicates not just that you're owning your mistake, but that you're ready and willing to reconcile. Like this relationship's fractured, but I want to heal it. I want to have some steps towards making things right. Sometimes in our life, we've got to drop it, and we've got to apologize. It's just the way that it is. But other times, this is a lot harder. We've got to drop it, and we've got to forgive. I mean, this is difficult. And you're sitting here, you're thinking, you don't understand what they did to me. You don't even know the hurt that they caused. How could I possibly forgive them? I mean, you don't know what I've been through. And you're absolutely right. I don't know. I don't know what you've been through. I don't know what someone else has done to you. But I know this, that the choice to forgive doesn't mean that what happened to you wasn't wrong. And it doesn't mean that you're forgetting about the hurt that they caused you. But when you choose to drop your anger and forgive someone else, what you're doing is you're removing the power that anger has to damage you and destroy you and define you. You know, I've heard it said before that not forgiving someone else is like drinking a poison and expecting the other person to get hurt. I mean, this doesn't make sense. And you're the one who ends up carrying it and dealing with it. Forgiveness is often more than a feeling. It's just a decision. It's just a choice to say, you know what? I'm choosing to not hold this thing against them anymore. I'm choosing to not be mad about it anymore. I'm not forgetting it happened, but I'm choosing to remove the power it has. I'm choosing to control my own decisions, and I'm not going to let this anger and this unforgiveness have a place in my heart any longer. And I can't help but think, man, if only you and I had an example, right? If only we had an example of someone who had every right to be offended, They had every right to be mad, every right to hold someone else's sin against them, and yet they didn't. Man, if only we had an example like that. Well, Paul finishes his thought here in verse 32. He says this. He says, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. Jesus had every right, every reason to distance himself from us, to hold it against us, to let us just die in our sin and our wickedness and the things that we've done wrong. Yet he chose to forgive. He even went so far as to go to a cross, to die as a sacrifice for the very people who have sinned against him. I mean, he carried it on himself so that we wouldn't have to. But what do we do in life? We look at what other people have done against us and we just magnify it. I can't believe they did that. How could they do this to me? I mean, just wait until they get a piece of me. I can't believe what they've done. But today, we got to drop it. We got to drop that. This is what we have to do. Everything changes. You put down the magnifying glass, you pick up a mirror. Because when you see the Mount Everest of sin that God has forgiven you from, the things other people have done to you look like a small pile in comparison. And if God has forgiven every single charge against you, how could you possibly hold a charge against someone else? I mean, the very nature of our relationship with Jesus is that we have been forgiven. And I love this word from Paul here, or this small phrase. Maybe you got to circle this in your Bible. You can't forget this. He says, forgive each other just as God forgave you. Just as. In the same way. Our ability to forgive others is directly tied to the forgiveness that we have received. It enables us and it empowers us to drop the anger that Satan wants to use to divide us and to forgive other people instead. And so this morning, you might find yourself caught in a prison of anger that you cannot get out of. And the truth is, until you've been forgiven by Jesus, you will never be able to find victory and freedom here. But when you receive forgiveness, when you receive mercy, you're able to extend that same mercy to others. And when you remember how gracious God has been to you, you realize you've got no right to be angry with someone else. You know, Jesus himself said this. He said, he who has been forgiven of much loves much. And so where Satan wants to divide and destroy, Jesus shows us the way to deal with our anger, to deal with it quickly, to drop it, and to live at peace with one another. And so I wonder today, how do you need to respond to this? I want to invite you around the room just to close your eyes, and I just want to invite you to put your hands out in front of you. I mean, don't worry about the person next to you. I just want you to put your hands right out in front of you. I just want you to ball them up in a fist. Every person around the room, just hold your hands out in front of you, ball them up in a fist. This is what we do. We hold on to our anger. We hold on to the offenses. We don't forget what they've done against us. But what God invites us to do today is just to drop it. And so I want you to imagine in your hands that thing that you just cannot get over, that thing that you've been holding against them. Maybe for you, you're an angry person. Your anger is hurting your relationships, and you just got to drop it. I just want you to imagine holding it in your hands, and then on the count of three, I just want us to drop it together. 1, 2, 3. Just release it. So open your hands. This isn't some mystical moment. It's just a physical representation of what God wants us to do in our hearts. He wants us to drop it. Maybe today what you need to do is pull out that response card you were handed when you walked in today. You just need to fill that out, and you just want to write down on there whatever that thing is that you need to drop, the anger you're holding on to. Just write it out there because we want to pray for you. We want to encourage you. We want to help you to move forward. Maybe today you've been hearing about Jesus and you'd say, you know what, that's what I need. I need a relationship with Jesus this morning. If you want to start a relationship with Jesus, I just want to invite you to take that response card as well, to fill it out, and just write Jesus in the comment box. Just write Jesus. Because what we want to do is we want to come next to you this week. We want to help you begin that relationship and learn about the forgiveness God offers you and the power you have to forgive others. Well, God, I thank you this morning for your heart to forgive us when we've been wrong. God, I thank you for the way that you choose to not hold our sin against us. And I ask that you would help us to extend that same grace to others. God, we don't want to be angry people. We want to deal with it. So give us what we need to do that. Help us to drop it before Satan divides with it. God, let our relationships be marked by forgiveness and apologizing and all the things that we need to do to make sure that we're right with others and we're right with you. And thanks most of all for Jesus. He gave us the example. We want to follow him today. Help us to do that. We pray it all in his name. Amen.
Well, I hope you are inspired and encouraged by what you've experienced here today. At Grace Church, we believe that there's always a next step, and I trust that God is beginning to reveal your next step to you now. If that's the case, would you share that with us? You can do that on the response card right on the Grace Church app. We would love to pray with you and help you take that next step. Well, thanks again for choosing to connect with us online, and have a great day.